Did you ever wonder how many banned kitchen items from the 1980s sat right in your family's home? These kitchen items shaped daily meals, holiday gatherings, and quiet weeknight dinners without anyone questioning their safety. And if the tools we trusted to feed our families carried dangers we never imagined, what else was hiding in those cupboards and drawers? Aluminum cookware with untested non-stick coatings was the pride of every 1980s kitchen, promising easy cleanup and perfectly golden pancakes without scrubbing burnt residue from the bottom of every pan. Families loved these lightweight pans because they made cooking feel effortless, and advertisers swore the surfaces were perfectly safe for daily use. Mothers trusted them for morning eggs and evening stir-fries, genuinely believing they were preparing meals with the best technology available. But those early coatings were never properly tested for what happened when they overheated during normal cooking. When temperatures climbed too high, the surface began breaking down, releasing invisible fumes that caused dizziness, nausea, and difficulty breathing. Pet birds in kitchens sometimes died from exposure before anyone realized the deadly connection. Scientists eventually discovered these fumes contained compounds causing serious respiratory damage with repeated exposure. Regulators banned the most dangerous formulations, forcing manufacturers to reformulate their products. It is unsettling to realize how many family meals were prepared on surfaces quietly releasing toxins into the air. Lead-glazed ceramic mixing bowls were colorful staples of 1980s kitchens, sitting on counters with patterns ranging from cheerful florals to bold geometric designs that seemed perfectly modern. People loved the solid weight of them, how sturdy and reliable they felt during holiday baking marathons or ordinary weeknight meal prep after long days. Mothers mixed cookie dough, whisked salad dressings, and stored leftovers in these bowls without ever questioning what lurked beneath the shiny decorative surface. But the glazes that made these bowls so beautiful often contained lead, and acidic foods like tomato sauce slowly pulled that lead directly into the meal. Families consumed trace amounts with every serving, completely unaware that something so ordinary could be quietly dangerous. Children absorbed lead quickly, and effects on developing brains were severe and sometimes permanent. When testing revealed widespread contamination, regulators demanded changes that pulled the worst offenders from store shelves entirely. Today, those cheerful bowls are collector's items, admired but never used for food again. It is haunting to realize how many batches of holiday cookies carried more than sugar into growing bodies. Asbestos potholders and trivets were considered ultimate kitchen safety tools in the 1980s, advertised as heat-resistant and practically indestructible. People grabbed hot pans, lifted scorching casserole dishes, and rested boiling pots on these woven pads without any fear. Manufacturers marketed them as modern marvels every family deserved. Parents passed them between generations, never questioning the grayish fibers woven throughout. But asbestos does not stay locked inside its weave forever. With every use, wash, and fold, microscopic fibers broke loose and drifted into the air. Families inhaled them while standing at the stove, while cleaning up after dinner, while reaching for dessert plates still warm from the oven. Those fibers lodged deep in lungs and stayed there, causing damage that sometimes took decades to appear. When scientists connected asbestos exposure to deadly respiratory diseases, regulators banned these products entirely. The pot holders that symbolized kitchen safety became symbols of hidden danger instead. It is chilling to realize something meant to protect from burns was quietly causing harm far worse. Plastic baby bottle warmers containing BPA were marketed as lifesavers for exhausted parents in the 1980s, promising perfectly heated formula without fuss or complicated preparation. New mothers trusted these devices completely, genuinely believing they were providing the best care during late-night feedings and early morning routines when exhaustion clouded every decision. The plastic reservoirs and warming chambers seemed sturdy, practical, and thoughtfully designed with infants in mind. But BPA, a chemical making plastics hard and clear, did not stay locked inside when heat was applied. It leached directly into the formula, mixing invisibly with liquid babies drank during their most vulnerable developmental months. Scientists later discovered BPA mimicked hormones, disrupting development in ways affecting growth, behavior, and cognition. The revelation sent shockwaves through parenting communities, and regulators quickly banned BPA from baby products entirely. Families who used these warmers were left wondering what their children had been exposed to during thousands of innocent feedings. Those convenient devices became cautionary reminders that safety and marketing do not always mean the same thing. Formaldehyde-treated wooden cutting boards were sold throughout the 1980s as hygienic alternatives to the older, untreated boards grandparents had used for generations. Manufacturers promised the chemical treatment prevented dangerous bacteria growth, making these boards safer for preparing raw meat, fresh vegetables, and everything families served for dinner. Homeowners bought them believing they were investing in healthier kitchens, trusting the labels that emphasized cleanliness and modern science. But formaldehyde does not simply vanish once it has been applied to wood. It off-gases slowly, releasing invisible fumes that irritate eyes, throats, and lungs with every single slice and chop. People developed headaches, skin rashes, and respiratory problems without ever connecting their symptoms to the cutting board beside the sink. Children helping with meal prep breathed these fumes at levels no one monitored at the time. When researchers linked formaldehyde exposure to serious health risks, including cancer, regulators cracked down on treated household products. Those cutting boards, once symbols of modern hygiene, were suddenly recognized as sources of invisible kitchen contamination. Cadmium-colored enamelware brightened 1980s kitchens with shades of orange, red, and yellow so vivid they seemed to glow under fluorescent lights and morning sunshine. Families displayed these pots and pans proudly on stovetops and shelves, using them for everything from simmering Sunday soup to boiling weeknight pasta. The colors felt cheerful and modern, a welcome departure from the dull gray and brown metals of earlier decades. Cooks loved how the enamel cleaned easily and resisted stubborn staining, making these pieces everyday favorites for busy families. But cadmium, the heavy metal that created those brilliant hues, did not stay locked inside the enamel coating forever. Acidic foods like tomatoes, citrus, and vinegar slowly pulled cadmium out of the colorful coating and into whatever was simmering inside. Families ate meals laced with a toxin known to damage kidneys, weaken bones, and accumulate in the body over time. When testing revealed how easily cadmium leached from decorative cookware, regulators demanded strict limits that banned the brightest colors from kitchen use. Those eye-catching pots became dangerous antiques, reminders that cheerful colors sometimes carried the greatest hidden risks. Carbon tetrachloride oven cleaners promised homeowners in the 1980s the power to dissolve baked-on grease without scrubbing, and desperate cooks believed every word. The fumes were sharp and overwhelming, but people assumed that meant the product was working hard on their behalf. Mothers sprayed inside ovens, closed the doors, and waited while chemicals worked, often leaning close to check progress through the small window. But carbon tetrachloride was never meant for enclosed household spaces. The fumes attacked livers, kidneys, and nervous systems with speed that shocked medical researchers. People using these cleaners in poorly ventilated kitchens collapsed before understanding what was happening. Emergency rooms documented cases linked directly to products sold in every grocery store. When regulators finally banned carbon tetrachloride for household use, it came with the weight of tragedies that should never have happened. Those powerful cleaners vanished from shelves, replaced by formulas sacrificing strength for safety. It is haunting to think how many people stood inches from danger while simply trying to clean. Mercury meat thermometers were kitchen essentials throughout the 1980s, trusted to deliver accurate readings that meant the difference between a perfect roast and a dangerous one. Cooks jabbed them into turkeys, hams, and roasts, watching the silver line climb until it signaled doneness. These thermometers felt reliable, scientific, and essential for holiday meals when temperature really mattered. But mercury does not belong anywhere near food. A cracked thermometer, a dropped gauge, or a broken tip could release tiny silver beads directly into the meat families we're about to serve. Children found the rolling droplets fascinating, sometimes touching or tasting them before adults intervened. Mercury poisoning symptoms ranged from tremors to memory loss, and the damage could be permanent. Once regulators recognized the danger, mercury thermometers were banned from kitchens and replaced with safer digital alternatives. Families who trusted these instruments for generations were shocked to learn what they had been risking with every temperature check. Those slim glass tubes became relics of an era when danger hid inside ordinary tools. PVC plastic wrap that leached into food was a kitchen staple throughout the 1980s, pulled from boxes and stretched over bowls, plates, and casserole dishes without hesitation. Families loved how it clung tightly, sealing in freshness and keeping leftovers safe for another day. Mothers covered dishes headed for the microwave, trusting that convenience and safety went hand in hand. But PVC plastic contained softening chemicals called plasticizers, and heat made those chemicals migrate directly into food. Every reheated plate of lasagna, every warmed bowl of soup absorbed compounds researchers later linked to hormone disruption and developmental problems. Children ate these meals most frequently, and their growing bodies absorbed the chemicals most readily. When scientists published findings connecting PVC exposure to serious health concerns, regulators demanded safer alternatives. The plastic wrap that once seemed essential became a symbol of how easily convenience can mask contamination. It is disturbing to realize how many family dinners carried invisible chemicals from wrap to plate to stomach without anyone ever knowing the truth. Ungrounded electric blenders without safety switches were kitchen workhorses in the 1980s, whirring through smoothies, soups, and sauces with raw mechanical power. Families loved the convenience of dropping ingredients into the glass jar and watching everything transform in seconds. These machines felt sturdy and capable, the kind of appliance lasting years without complaint. But early blenders often had metal housings connected to electrical systems with no grounding protection, meaning a short circuit could send current through anyone touching the machine. Wet counters, damp hands, and splashed liquids made the risk even greater. Some models had no safety switch, meaning blades could spin the moment power connected, regardless of whether the lid was secure. Emergency rooms treated cuts, shocks, and burns linked to these appliances more often than manufacturers admitted. When safety standards finally caught up, grounded plugs and automatic shutoffs became mandatory. Those old blenders became dangerous relics, reminders that the machines families trusted most sometimes carried the greatest risks hiding behind convenience. Benzene-based citrus fruit washes were sold throughout the 1980s as the modern solution for removing pesticides from oranges, lemons, and grapefruits before families ate them. Parents believed they were doing something healthy, scrubbing fruit with products that promised to eliminate chemicals sprayed on crops during growing seasons. The washes came in bright bottles with pictures of sparkling clean fruit, and advertisements insisted they were essential for any health-conscious household. But benzene, a chemical once used freely in cleaning products, does not simply rinse away. It absorbs through skin on contact, lingers on surfaces, and enters the body through fumes released during use. Researchers later connected benzene exposure to leukemia and other blood disorders, revealing that products meant to protect families were introducing carcinogens directly into kitchens. When regulators finally understood the scope of the danger, benzene-based products were banned from household use entirely. Families who had scrubbed fruit for years were left wondering how much exposure they had unknowingly accumulated. Those cheerful bottles became symbols of how easily good intentions can be twisted by dangerous chemistry. Pressure cookers without emergency release valves were staples in 1980s kitchens, promising faster cooking times and tender meats that would otherwise take hours to prepare on conventional stovetops. Families loved the convenience of dropping tough cuts into the pot and walking away while pressurized steam did all the work. These heavy metal cookers felt sturdy, reliable, and practically indestructible, built to last for generations. But without proper safety valves, pressure had nowhere to escape when temperatures climbed too high inside the sealed chamber. The dangerous buildup could turn a simple cooking pot into a kitchen bomb, launching heavy lids across rooms and spraying boiling contents onto anyone nearby. Emergency rooms treated severe burns, deep lacerations, and worse from exploding pressure cookers more often than most families ever realized. The accidents were sudden and violent, giving victims no time to react or protect themselves from the scalding eruption. When safety standards finally caught up, emergency release valves became mandatory on all pressure cookers sold. The older models were recalled or replaced, leaving behind cautionary tales of ordinary dinners that turned into disasters. Glass percolators with lead solder joints sat on kitchen counters throughout the 1980s, bubbling away each morning as families prepared for the day ahead. The gentle gurgling sound became the soundtrack of breakfast routines, and the rich aroma of fresh coffee filled homes from coast to coast. People loved watching the dark liquid rise and fall through the glass chamber, a mesmerizing ritual that felt both comforting and sophisticated. But the joints holding these percolators together often contained lead solder, and hot water passing through those seams day after day slowly dissolved trace amounts of metal into every pot. Families drank their morning coffee without any idea that each cup carried invisible contamination. Children who snuck sips absorbed lead even faster than adults, and the cumulative effects built silently over months and years. When researchers tested older percolators and found alarming lead levels, regulators demanded changes that eventually removed lead solder from all food contact surfaces. Those beloved glass pots became relics of a time when even the simplest morning ritual could carry hidden dangers no one ever suspected. Electric carving knives with exposed blade mechanisms were the must-have appliance for holiday dinners throughout the 1980s, promising perfectly sliced turkey and roast beef with minimal effort. Families gathered around the table while fathers wielded these buzzing tools like modern kitchen swords, carving through meat with impressive speed and precision. The blades moved rapidly back and forth, slicing through even the toughest cuts with ease. But early models had exposed mechanisms where fingers could slip between moving parts without any barrier to stop them. The same power that made carving effortless also made injuries severe and sudden. One wrong grip, one moment of distraction, and the blade could catch skin before anyone realized what happened. Emergency rooms saw spikes in hand injuries every holiday season, many traced directly to these unguarded carving knives. When manufacturers finally added safety guards and blade locks, the older models became dangerous antiques unsuitable for modern kitchens. Those holiday tools became reminders that festive traditions sometimes carried risks families never anticipated. Microwave browning dishes with toxic coatings were revolutionary kitchen gadgets in the 1980s, promising crispy bacon and golden reheated pizza straight from the microwave. Families loved how these special plates could achieve what regular microwave cookware could not, creating that satisfying crunch without firing up the oven. The dishes worked by absorbing microwave energy and converting it to intense surface heat, browning food from below while radiation cooked from within. But the coatings that made this possible were never properly tested for what happened under repeated high heat cycles. As temperatures spiked during each use, the surface released compounds that transferred directly into food. Researchers later discovered that these chemicals posed serious health risks with regular exposure over time. Families who used these dishes daily for years had unknowingly been adding invisible contamination to meals they thought were perfectly safe. When regulators investigated the coatings, the most dangerous versions were banned from production. Those miracle browning dishes became cautionary examples of how convenience sometimes hides chemical dangers that only emerge after years of trusting use. Copper cookware, lined with toxic tin alloys, was considered the finest kitchen equipment money could buy in the 1980s, prized by home cooks and professional chefs alike for its superior heat distribution. These beautiful pans gleamed on stovetops and hanging racks, symbols of culinary sophistication that made every kitchen feel more serious. Families splurged on copper because they believed it represented the pinnacle of cooking technology, something worth the investment for better meals. But the tin linings inside these pans contained alloys that were never meant for long-term food contact. As the lining wore thin from regular use and cleaning, toxic metals leached directly into whatever was cooking. Acidic foods like tomato sauces and wine reductions accelerated the process, pulling contamination into dishes families served proudly to guests. When researchers tested older copper cookware and found dangerous metal levels, the truth spread quickly through culinary communities. Regulators demanded safer lining materials, and the older pans became beautiful but hazardous antiques. Those gleaming copper pieces remind us that kitchen elegance sometimes concealed dangers families trusted completely. Gas ranges without automatic shutoffs were standard kitchen equipment throughout the 1980s, featuring pilot lights that burned continuously and burners that stayed lit until someone remembered to turn them off. Families cooked dinner, forgot about simmering pots, and sometimes left the kitchen without realizing a flame was still burning low beneath an empty pan. The blue glow of the pilot light became so familiar that people stopped noticing it entirely, even as it consumed gas 24 hours a day. But forgotten burners caused countless kitchen fires, and pilot lights that blew out released gas into homes without any alarm to warn sleeping families. The combination of open flame and unmonitored fuel created dangers that accumulated silently until disaster struck. When safety standards finally required automatic shutoffs and electronic ignition systems, the older ranges became obsolete relics of a more dangerous era. Families upgraded not for convenience, but for survival, recognizing that the ranges they had trusted for years carried risks that modern technology could eliminate. Those old stoves remind us how easily danger can hide behind something as ordinary as cooking dinner. Chest freezers without interior release latches were common in 1980s basements and garages, storing bulk meat purchases and frozen vegetables for families trying to save money by buying in quantity. These large white boxes seemed perfectly safe, sitting quietly against walls while keeping food preserved for months at a time. Parents thought nothing of sending children to grab frozen treats or helping retrieve items from the deep, cold interior. But these freezers locked from the outside with no way to open them from within. Children playing hide and seek crawled inside and found themselves trapped in airtight darkness with no escape. The tragedies that followed were devastating and preventable, leaving families shattered by losses that should never have happened. When regulators finally mandated interior release mechanisms, the requirement came with the weight of lives lost to a design flaw everyone had overlooked. Those old freezers became symbols of how ordinary household items can harbor deadly dangers that no parent ever imagined. The simple addition of an interior latch saved countless lives and changed freezer design forever. Electric can openers with unguarded cutting wheels were kitchen countertop fixtures throughout the 1980s, promising effortless access to canned goods with just the push of a lever. Families used them daily for soups, vegetables, and everything else that came sealed in metal cylinders. The motorized wheels spun with impressive force, slicing through tin lids with speed that seemed almost magical. But those spinning blades had no guards to protect curious fingers from getting too close. Children reaching to remove a stuck can found their hands meeting sharp rotating metal before they could pull away. Adults distracted by ringing phones or crying babies suffered similar injuries, their attention divided at exactly the wrong moment. Emergency rooms treated deep cuts and severed fingertips traced directly to these unguarded appliances far more often than manufacturers acknowledged. When safety standards finally required protective guards and automatic stops, the older models became recognized hazards unsuitable for family kitchens. Those convenient openers became reminders that even simple tools can cause serious harm when basic protections are missing. Household lye for cleaning and canning was sold in grocery stores throughout the 1980s, sitting on shelves beside dish soap and laundry detergent as if it were just another ordinary cleaning product. Families bought it for clearing drains, making homemade soap, and processing olives or other foods using traditional canning methods passed down through generations. The white crystals looked harmless enough, resembling salt or sugar in their plain containers. But lye is sodium hydroxide, a caustic substance capable of dissolving organic material on contact. Splashes on skin caused immediate chemical burns that deepened with every passing second. Eyes exposed to lye suffered damage that was often permanent, leaving victims with impaired vision or complete blindness. Children who mistook the crystals for something edible faced burns to mouths, throats, and stomachs that required emergency medical intervention. When regulators restricted lye sales and required child-resistant packaging, the changes came after years of preventable tragedies. Those plain containers became reminders that the most dangerous substances sometimes wear the most ordinary disguises. Decorative kitchen canisters with lead paint-lined countertops throughout the 1980s, holding flour, sugar, coffee, and tea in cheerful containers that matched every kitchen color scheme. Families loved how these ceramic or metal canisters kept ingredients organized while adding personality to ordinary spaces. The painted designs featured flowers, fruit, and country scenes that made kitchens feel warm and welcoming. Parents scooped ingredients daily, never questioning the bright colors decorating the surfaces their food touched. But lead-based paints were common in decorative finishes, and constant handling slowly wore the paint into dust that settled onto whatever was stored inside. Families sprinkled contaminated flour into bread dough, stirred tainted sugar into coffee, and baked with ingredients carrying invisible traces of toxic metal. When researchers tested vintage canisters and found alarming lead levels, the connection between cheerful decor and silent poisoning became devastatingly clear. Regulators banned lead paint from food contact surfaces, but countless canisters remained in homes for years. Those pretty containers became reminders that beauty and danger sometimes share the same bright colors. Countertop deep fryers without temperature limiters were popular kitchen appliances throughout the 1980s, promising restaurant-quality fried chicken and French fries right at home. Families loved gathering while golden food emerged from bubbling oil, the smell filling the house with anticipation. These compact fryers seemed like miracles of modern convenience, bringing professional cooking techniques to ordinary kitchens. But early models had no automatic shutoff to prevent oil from reaching dangerous temperatures. When distracted, cooks forgot to monitor the fryer. Oil could heat past its smoke point and ignite without warning. Grease fires spread faster than almost any other household blaze, engulfing kitchens in seconds and causing burns that scarred victims for life. Firefighters responded to countless calls where simple dinners had turned into infernos, destroying homes and injuring families. When safety standards finally required temperature limiters and automatic shutoffs, the older models became recognized fire hazards. Those convenient fryers became symbols of how quickly a family meal could turn catastrophic when basic safety features were missing from appliances. Plastic melamine dishes marketed for hot foods filled kitchen cabinets throughout the 1980s, prized for being lightweight, colorful, and virtually unbreakable compared to traditional ceramic plates. Families with young children especially loved these dishes because they survived drops and all the chaos that came with feeding toddlers. The bright colors made mealtimes feel fun, and parents appreciated not replacing shattered plates every few months. But melamine releases formaldehyde when heated, and serving hot soup or microwaved leftovers on these plates meant invisible chemicals migrating directly into family meals. Children ate from these dishes most frequently, their smaller bodies absorbing contamination with every warm dinner served. Parents who thought they were making practical choices were unknowingly exposing their families to compounds linked to kidney damage. When researchers published findings about melamine and heat, regulators issued warnings that shocked households across the country. Those cheerful, unbreakable plates became cautionary examples of how convenience can mask chemical dangers hiding in everyday items families trust without question. Aerosol cooking sprays with chlorofluorocarbons were kitchen staples throughout the 1980s, promising effortless non-stick coating with just a quick burst from the can. Home cooks loved how these sprays made cleanup easier and kept food from sticking to pans and baking sheets. The convenience felt revolutionary, replacing messy butter or oil with a simple press of a button. Every spray released a fine mist that coated surfaces evenly and seemed like pure kitchen magic. But the propellants inside these cans contained chlorofluorocarbons, chemicals that scientists later discovered were destroying the ozone layer, protecting Earth from harmful radiation. Every kitchen across America was contributing to environmental damage threatening the planet with increased cancer rates and ecological collapse. When the connection between aerosol propellants and ozone depletion became undeniable, regulators banned chlorofluorocarbons worldwide. Manufacturers reformulated with safer propellants, but the damage already done would take decades to repair. Those convenient spray cans became symbols of how ordinary household habits can have consequences reaching far beyond any single kitchen. Aluminum ice cube trays with cadmium plating were common freezer fixtures throughout the 1980s, their shiny metallic finish making them look modern compared to flimsy plastic alternatives. Families twisted these sturdy trays to release perfect cubes for lemonade, iced tea, and every cold drink served during hot summer months. The metal construction felt durable and reliable, the kind of kitchen tool lasting years without cracking. But the bright plating that made these trays gleam contained cadmium, a toxic, heavy metal that slowly leached into the ice frozen inside. Every cube carried invisible contamination dissolving into drinks the moment it began melting. Children gulping ice water after playing outside, adults cooling down with afternoon beverages, and guests at barbecues all consumed trace amounts of a toxin accumulating in bodies over time. When researchers connected cadmium exposure to kidney damage and bone weakness, regulators banned the plating process from food contact items entirely. Those gleaming trays became dangerous antiques, reminders that even something as innocent as ice cubes once carried risks no one imagined. Gas ranges without proper ventilation requirements filled kitchens across the 1980s, their blue flames dancing beneath pots and pans while families cooked without ever opening a window or switching on an exhaust fan. People trusted these stoves completely, believing that gas was cleaner and more efficient than electric alternatives. The flames provided instant heat, precise control, and a cooking experience that felt professional and satisfying. What nobody discussed was the invisible cloud of combustion byproducts filling the room with every meal. Gas burners release carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and other pollutants that accumulate quickly in enclosed spaces. Families breathed these fumes while stirring sauces, boiling pasta, and gathering around the stove for warmth on cold mornings. Children with developing lungs were especially vulnerable, though no one connected their coughs or headaches to the stove humming nearby. It took decades of research before regulators began requiring proper ventilation and warning labels for gas appliances. Modern kitchens now emphasize exhaust hoods and open windows, but for years families cooked in rooms quietly filling with air no one should have been breathing. PVC plastic food containers revolutionized kitchen storage in the 1970s, their lightweight durability and airtight seals making them seem like the perfect solution for leftovers, lunch packing, and pantry organization. Families stacked them in refrigerators, microwaved them without hesitation, and filled them with everything from spaghetti sauce to birthday cake. But PVC plastic contained phthalates, chemical softeners that made the material flexible, but also leached into food over time. Heat accelerated this process dramatically, so every reheated casserole and every warm soup stored in these containers absorbed compounds now known to disrupt hormones. Children carried lunches to school in containers that slowly released chemicals into their sandwiches. Parents warmed baby food in plastic that transferred toxins with every heated spoonful. When researchers finally connected soft plastic containers to health concerns, regulators banned the most dangerous formulations. The containers that once symbolized modern convenience became cautionary reminders that storing food safely required far more than just a tight-fitting lid. Pull-out cutting boards were another once common feature. Built directly into kitchen cabinetry, these wooden slabs slid out like drawers. They saved counter space and provided a dedicated spot for chopping vegetables or slicing bread. But they came with problems. They absorbed smells, warped with moisture, and stained permanently with every onion or tomato. Some boards became so seasoned with marks and stains that they told a family's entire cooking history. Kids rolled out cookie dough on them, pounding cookie cutters until the wood was scarred with little circles. Dads used them for carving roasts, leaving behind knife grooves and grease stains. The boards often squeaked when pulled out, a familiar sound in every household. Even though they were flawed, they gave kitchens a sense of resourcefulness and tradition. Yet, for families with small kitchens, they were a lifesaver. Kids often remembered rolling out cookie dough on those boards, flour dusting the wood as holiday baking took over the room. Today, the pull-out cutting board has all but vanished, but its memory remains in kitchens that valued function above all else. Lead-soldered copper cookware held a special place in 1970s kitchens, its gleaming reddish surfaces suggesting professional quality and timeless elegance that lesser pots could never match. Home cooks displayed these pieces proudly, believing they had invested in something that would last generations and make every dish taste better. The craftsmanship was undeniable, but hidden in the seams where copper panels joined together was lead solder that made the connection strong and seamless. Every time acidic ingredients like wine, vinegar, or tomatoes simmered in these beautiful pots, lead leached silently into the food. Families served marinara sauce and countless other dishes contaminated with a heavy metal that accumulated in bones and blood over time. Children absorbed the toxin even faster than adults, their growing bodies storing poison with every meal their parents prepared with such care. When researchers finally connected copper cookware to elevated lead levels in households, the bans followed quickly. Those elegant pots, once symbols of culinary sophistication, became warnings about how beauty and craftsmanship can sometimes mask dangers simmering beneath the surface. Microwave ovens with radiation leakage were an exciting new addition to kitchens in the early 1980s, promising meals heated in minutes instead of hours. Families gathered around these bulky machines, marveling at how quickly leftovers steamed and frozen dinners sizzled. The technology felt like science fiction brought to life, a glimpse of the future sitting right on the countertop. What consumers did not realize was that early models often leaked microwave energy through poorly sealed doors and aging gaskets. People stood inches away, watching food spin on the turntable, absorbing radiation that was never supposed to escape the metal box. Reports of headaches, dizziness, and eye irritation began surfacing among heavy users. Technicians testing these units found alarming levels of leakage that far exceeded safe limits. Regulators stepped in quickly once the pattern became undeniable, requiring stricter shielding standards and mandatory safety interlocks. Modern microwaves are engineered to contain their energy completely, but those early models sat in kitchens for years before anyone understood what was quietly escaping through the cracks. Fiberglass insulated electric skillets were among the most popular plug-in cooking devices of the 1970s, their convenient temperature dials and spacious cooking surfaces making them perfect for everything from pancake breakfasts to one-pan dinners. Families loved that these skillets heated evenly and could be used right at the table, eliminating the need to transfer food from stove to serving dish. The insulation wrapped around the heating elements contained fiberglass, which worked beautifully until the skillet aged or suffered scratches that exposed the material beneath. Once compromised, microscopic glass fibers could work their way into food or drift into the air during cooking sessions. People scraped metal utensils across surfaces without knowing they were releasing particles that irritated lungs and skin on contact. When manufacturers acknowledged the risks and regulators demanded safer alternatives, many families had already used these skillets for a decade or more. The convenient countertop cooking solution had been quietly shedding invisible hazards into Sunday brunches and weeknight dinners all along. Bread drawers with roll-top covers were the finishing touch of a vintage kitchen. Built into cabinets, they kept loaves tucked away neatly, shielded from pests and staleness. The roll-top design made opening and closing them oddly satisfying. Families saw them as a mark of a well-equipped modern kitchen, but over time, bread drawers became unnecessary. Moms loved the way they hid clutter, slipping in not just bread but crackers, cookies, and even lunchbox snacks. Kids loved sliding the cover up and down just for the sound, pretending it was a secret hiding place. Some drawers got stuffed so full that the roll top barely closed, creaking under the pressure of too many loaves. Over time, the covers warped, and crumbs always seemed to collect in the corners no matter how often they were cleaned. Still, they gave kitchens a sense of order, a place where even bread had its own home. Packaged bread lasted longer, freezers took over storage, and counter space became more valuable. Today, bread drawers are rare curiosities, a reminder of a time when every kitchen detail was designed with purpose, even if that purpose eventually disappeared. Mercury dial meat thermometers were essential tools in kitchens across the 1980s, trusted to deliver accurate readings every time a roast or turkey came out of the oven. The slender glass tubes with their silver columns felt precise and reassuringly old-fashioned in an era fascinated by gadgets. Parents stabbed them into holiday birds without hesitation, checking temperatures while steam rose and ovens hummed. What nobody considered was what happened when the glass cracked or shattered, something that occurred far more often than people like to admit. A dropped thermometer or an accidental knock against a roasting pan could send tiny beads of mercury rolling across cutting boards or directly onto the food itself. Mercury is extraordinarily toxic, capable of causing neurological damage even in small doses, and cleaning up a spill was nearly impossible without professional help. By the time regulators restricted mercury in household products, countless families had unknowingly handled broken thermometers with bare hands. Today, digital thermometers have replaced those old glass tubes entirely, but the memory of that delicate silver line remains etched into holiday cooking memories. Cadmium-colored enamelware brought a burst of sunshine into 1970s kitchens with its vibrant oranges, fiery reds, and cheerful yellows that made even the simplest cooking tasks feel festive. These bright pots and pans looked stunning hanging from pot racks or sitting on stovetops, their glossy surfaces catching the light and adding warmth to every meal. Families used them daily for boiling pasta, simmering sauces, and warming soups, never imagining that the pigments creating those beautiful colors contained cadmium, a heavy metal with serious health consequences. Every time acidic foods like tomatoes touched these surfaces, tiny amounts of cadmium leached into whatever was being cooked. Children ate from bowls filled with contaminated stews, while parents proudly showed off their colorful kitchen collections. Researchers eventually discovered that cadmium exposure could damage kidneys, weaken bones, and accumulate dangerously over time. The bans arrived swiftly once the evidence became clear, forcing families to discard cookware they had treasured for years. Those cheerful orange pots serve as reminders that the brightest things in our kitchens sometimes carried the darkest secrets. Harvest Gold ovens were the bold rival of avocado green. If you walked into a kitchen in the 1970s, you were almost guaranteed to find one or the other. Harvest Gold was a warm, mustard yellow shade meant to represent optimism and sunshine. It looked sleek in magazine spreads, glowing beneath overhead lights. But in real life, it was a lot of yellow. Some families even joked that everything they cooked looked like it had been dipped in mustard because of the oven's glow. The color was so strong that it often clashed with other kitchen shades, yet people kept buying it because it felt modern. Families gathered around meals cooked in these ovens, their golden color casting an odd glow on every casserole dish. For many, the shade became tied to the smells of meatloaf, pot roast, and Sunday dinners. It was cheerful, yes, but it aged quickly. Within a decade, Harvest Gold went from trendy to tacky, yet no one can deny its place in history, a color that defined the kitchens of an entire generation. Ungrounded kitchen outlet wiring was standard in homes built before the 1980s, and many kitchens kept those dangerous two-prong outlets well into the decade without anyone questioning the risk. Families plugged in toasters, blenders, mixers, and coffee makers without realizing that a single splash of water or a frayed cord could turn an ordinary morning into a medical emergency. The outlets had no ground wire to redirect stray electricity, meaning any fault in an appliance sent current straight through whatever touched it next. Wet hands reaching for a plugged-in mixer became conductors in a circuit nobody intended to complete. Children standing on damp floors while touching metal appliances faced dangers their parents never imagined. Electricians at the time knew the risks, but retrofitting older homes was expensive, and most families simply lived with what they had. When building codes finally caught up and required grounded outlets in kitchens, the change saved countless lives. But for years, those simple two-prong outlets sat beside sinks and countertops, quietly waiting for the wrong combination of water and electricity to turn a family kitchen into a danger zone. Hideaway bread boxes were once the secret storage of the kitchen. Instead of the wicker baskets or countertop bins we see today, these boxes were cleverly built right into the counters, hidden under a sliding panel, or disguised as part of the cabinetry. Moms would pull open the section, and inside were loaves of white sandwich bread, dinner rolls, or maybe a few sweet buns saved from the bakery. The idea was simple. Bread stayed fresher, out of sight, and away from curious hands. But there was also a touch of pride in having such a sleek, modern feature built right into the kitchen. Bread boxes became part of the ritual of mealtime. Kids would wait as Mom reached into the hidden drawer, pulling out slices for sandwiches or toast. Some even had faint, yeasty smells clinging to them, proof that bread was the true staple of the family table. Of course, bread eventually came sealed tighter, baked to last longer, and stored more easily in pantries or freezers. That meant the Hideaway box slowly lost its purpose. Today, you almost never see them, but for anyone who grew up with one, the memory of opening that secret compartment for a slice of bread is still fresh. Aluminum pressure cookers without safety valves were kitchen workhorses in the 1980s, promising faster meals with less fuel and more convenience than traditional stovetop methods. Families used them for stews, beans, soups, and anything else that benefited from high-pressure cooking. The lids clamped down tightly, the steam built up quickly, and dinner appeared in a fraction of the usual time. What nobody anticipated was what happened when the pressure exceeded safe limits and the cooker had no way to release it. These budget models lacked the safety mechanisms that modern cookers take for granted, and when something went wrong, it went wrong catastrophically. Lids launched toward ceilings, scalding contents erupted across kitchens, and families found themselves dealing with burns, broken cabinets, and shattered trust in a device they had used for years. Reports of explosions mounted through the decade until regulators demanded stricter safety standards. Modern pressure cookers now feature multiple release valves and locking mechanisms, making the old aluminum models relics of a more dangerous time. The convenience they promised came with risks that only became clear after too many kitchens paid the price. Mercury meat thermometers were the trusted companions of every serious home cook in the 1970s, their slender glass tubes and silver liquid columns promising perfectly roasted turkeys and safely cooked roasts. Families inserted them into holiday birds, Sunday hams, and weeknight chickens, watching the mercury rise with the confidence that came from believing science had made cooking foolproof. What nobody considered was what happened when these fragile instruments broke. A simple bump against a pot lid or a careless toss into a sink could shatter the glass and release mercury droplets that scattered across countertops and floors. This toxic metal did not simply wipe away. It pooled in cracks, evaporated slowly into kitchen air, and clung to surfaces in ways that made complete cleanup nearly impossible. Families unknowingly prepared meals in contaminated kitchens for weeks after accidents they barely noticed. When safer alternatives became available and regulators recognized the residential dangers, mercury thermometers were pulled from store shelves. The precision those silver columns promised came with a price nobody realized they were paying. Lazy Susans in corner cabinets made storage more fun than it had any right to be. Spin the wooden circle, and rows of canned food whirled into view. They squeaked, clattered, and sometimes jammed, but they made the most of awkward cabinet space. Kids loved giving them an extra spin just to watch the cans slide around. Parents loved the convenience, even if the mechanism wore out over time. Sometimes a can would topple off mid-spin, clunking loudly against the cabinet walls, but that never stopped anyone from spinning again. Grandmas filled theirs with spices, while kids begged to see how fast the whole thing could go without knocking food over. Every turn revealed forgotten cans of beans or soup, a little surprise tucked away in storage. Families joked about losing things in the Lazy Susan, only to find them months later on the far side. For all its quirks, it became a little source of entertainment as well as practicality. Lazy Susans were both practical and playful, a kitchen feature that brought a little fun into the daily grind of cooking dinner. Teflon pans with unregulated PFOA coatings were marketed as revolutionary miracles in the 1980s, promising effortless cooking and even easier cleanup. Families embraced them enthusiastically, thrilled by the idea of eggs sliding cleanly off the surface and sauces refusing to stick no matter how long they simmered. These pans appeared in wedding registries, holiday gift guides, and nearly every kitchen cupboard across the country. What people did not know was that the coatings contained perfluorooctanoic acid, a chemical that released toxic fumes when pans overheated on high flames. Families cooked on these surfaces daily, sometimes leaving empty pans on hot burners or cranking the heat higher than manufacturers recommended. The fumes were invisible but dangerous, capable of causing flu-like symptoms in humans and proving fatal to pet birds in the same room. Researchers eventually documented the health risks and environmental persistence of PFOA, leading to voluntary phase-outs and tighter regulations. Modern non-stick coatings no longer contain the chemical, but for years those gleaming pans sat on stoves across the nation, quietly releasing hazards with every overheated meal. Built-in wall phones with 20-foot cords were the lifeline of the kitchen. Mounted to the wall, they often became the command center of the household. Moms cooked while cradling the receiver on their shoulder, stretching that cord across the room as kids ducked underneath. The cords twisted into impossible knots, dangling and bouncing as conversations went on. Privacy? Forget it. Everyone in the house could hear your call, no matter how far you stretched. Kids turned those cords into jump ropes or played limbo under them while moms scolded them to stay out of the way. Untangling the cord became a chore of its own, and some cords stayed twisted forever, no matter how hard you tried. Still, there was comfort in it. The phone was always there, always ringing, always part of the daily kitchen soundtrack. Today, it seems almost absurd to imagine being tethered to a wall just to talk. But for families of the time, the wall phone, with its endlessly tangled cord, was as much a kitchen. Asbestos trivets and potholders were considered the ultimate in kitchen safety during the 1970s, promising to protect countertops and hands from even the hottest pans fresh off the stove. Families stacked them in drawers, hung them beside ovens, and used them daily without giving a single thought to what made these items so remarkably heat-resistant. The answer was asbestos, a mineral fiber that could withstand extreme temperatures but also released microscopic particles into the air with every use. Each time someone grabbed a potholder to lift a casserole or slid a trivet under a sizzling skillet, invisible fibers drifted through the kitchen into the lungs of everyone nearby. Children did homework at kitchen tables while parents cooked dinner inches away from materials now known to cause devastating respiratory diseases. The tragedy is that asbestos felt so safe, so perfectly suited for its purpose that questioning it seemed absurd. When the truth emerged and bans swept through households, people were horrified to realize they had been protecting their hands while slowly harming their lungs. Those trivets became symbols of how easily danger can disguise itself as convenience. Electric can openers with exposed blade mechanisms sat on countertops in nearly every 1980s kitchen, promising effortless access to canned goods with the press of a single button. These gadgets felt futuristic at the time, eliminating the hand cramps and uneven cuts that came with manual openers. Families used them daily for soup, vegetables, pet food, and anything else sealed in tin. What manufacturers overlooked was how easily those spinning blades could catch more than just metal lids. Early models featured minimal guards and unpredictable stopping points, leaving sharp exposed edges ready to slice unsuspecting fingers reaching to remove a freshly opened can. Emergency rooms documented a steady stream of cuts, gashes, and lacerations traced back to these countertop conveniences. Parents and children alike learned the hard way that the gadget meant to make life easier could draw blood in an instant. Regulators eventually pushed for better safety designs, including automatic blade retraction and protective covers that modern users take for granted. Those early electric can openers remain a reminder that convenience without caution often comes at an unexpected cost. Formaldehyde-sealed wooden cutting boards were standard equipment in 1970s kitchens. Their smooth hardwood surfaces treated with chemicals that promised to prevent warping, cracking, and bacterial growth for years. Families chopped vegetables, sliced bread, and prepared raw meat on these boards daily, trusting that the industrial treatment made them superior to untreated alternatives. What homemakers did not realize was that formaldehyde, a known carcinogen, slowly released from these treated surfaces over time, especially when the wood was scored by repeated knife cuts. Every slice through an onion, Every chop through a carrot released tiny amounts of the chemical directly into the food being prepared. The smell was faint, sometimes undetectable, and easily dismissed as the natural scent of wood. Researchers eventually documented how formaldehyde exposure in kitchens contributed to respiratory irritation and long-term health concerns. When regulations tightened and safer sealants became available, the older boards were phased out. But for decades, families had been seasoning their meals with something far more dangerous than salt and pepper. Plastic cutting boards with toxic dyes were common fixtures in 1980s kitchens, offered in rainbow colors that made food preparation feel more organized and stylish. Families assigned different colors to different tasks, using red for meats, green for vegetables, and yellow for poultry, believing they were practicing smart kitchen hygiene. The boards were lightweight, affordable, and easy to clean, making them seem like the obvious choice over heavier wooden alternatives. What nobody questioned was what happened when sharp knives scored deep grooves into the plastic, and those colorful dyes began transferring onto food. The pigments used in many of these boards contained chemicals never intended for food contact, and repeated cutting created perfect channels for contamination. Families sliced tomatoes, diced onions, and carved roasts on surfaces that slowly released harmful substances with every meal. It took years for safety standards to catch up, eventually requiring food-safe dyes and stricter testing for any product meant to touch ingredients. Those cheerful rainbow boards have since been replaced by safer options, but they remain a reminder of how easily danger hid inside everyday kitchen tools. Aluminum pressure cookers without safety valves were the time-saving heroes of busy 1970s households, promising to turn tough cuts of meat into tender masterpieces in a fraction of the usual time. Families gathered around these hissing, steaming pots with a mixture of excitement and anticipation, watching the pressure gauge climb while dinner transformed inside. The problem was that early models had no reliable way to release excess pressure when things went wrong. One moment you had a pot roast cooking peacefully, and the next moment the lid could launch toward the ceiling with enough force to dent plaster or worse. Kitchens across America experienced explosions that sent scalding food and metal fragments flying in every direction, leaving burns and injuries in their wake. Parents who had proudly shown off their modern cooking technology suddenly found themselves explaining to emergency room doctors how dinner ended up embedded in the walls. When safety standards finally caught up, regulators demanded multiple release mechanisms that made the older models illegal to sell. Those unregulated cookers became cautionary tales about speed and convenience coming at the cost of basic protection. Lead-soldered copper cookware was one of those kitchen treasures that grandparents and parents alike displayed with pride in the 1980s. These gleaming pots and pans hung from ceiling racks or rested in cupboards reserved for special occasions, promising even heating and a beauty that stainless steel simply could not match. Families cooked tomato sauces, wine reductions, and citrus glazes without ever wondering what the solder joints might be releasing into the food. The problem was that lead dissolved slowly but steadily whenever acidic ingredients touched those joints, turning beloved family recipes into quiet sources of contamination. Nobody suspected a thing because the pots looked clean and performed beautifully. When medical researchers began documenting the effects of chronic lead exposure, including cognitive damage and developmental delays in children, the cookware that once symbolized quality became a serious concern. Regulators eventually banned lead solder in food contact items, and families were urged to retire their old copper pieces. The pots that once gleamed with pride now sit in antique shops, reminders of a time when danger hid inside beautiful kitchen traditions. Teflon-coated pans with PFOA felt like pure kitchen magic when they first appeared in 1970s homes, promising that eggs would slide effortlessly and cleanup would take seconds instead of endless scrubbing. Families marveled at how nothing stuck to these miracle surfaces, tossing away their old cast iron in favor of something that seemed too good to be true. And in many ways, it was. The chemical compound that made these pans so slick released toxic fumes when the coating overheated, which happened more easily than most cooks realized. Birds in kitchens died suddenly from the invisible gases, and people reported flu-like symptoms after cooking sessions that pushed these pans past their limits. Nobody thought to question why a cooking surface could kill a parakeet nearby, because the convenience was simply too appealing to resist. It took decades before researchers understood how these forever chemicals accumulated in the body and refused to break down. When regulators finally stepped in, the original formulations were banned. But the memory of those early pans lingers uncomfortably for anyone who spent years breathing in fumes they never knew existed. If any of these banned kitchen items brought back memories, tell us which ones surprised you most in the comments. Tap like to help others discover the truth, and subscribe so you never miss another journey into the past.